Hello, my name is 𝗏𝗏𝗰𝗵𝗵𝗲𝗀𝘀, and this is an Imagination Online video. I'm here in Montreal, not, alas, in Quebec City for the Series Festival. I'm holed up in my apartment in 𝗏𝗏𝗰𝗵𝗲𝗀 with my family. My son is napping. I have a moment, and so I thought I would share with you a little bit about my work and writing. I wanted to start today. I have a blog called 𝘦𝗲𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀. It's one of Canada's oldest music blogs, and so for years and years I wrote every day or every week about pieces of music. And it had kind of gone to sleep for a while, the blog, but I've brought it back in recent days to kind of write these little meditative pieces, and I thought I would just share one for these quarantine times. This is a piece called Caregiver. I spend my day looking at changing numbers. Green numbers, red numbers, yellow numbers. If the numbers have been printed in an interesting or especially sans serif font, they seem bland. If they are serifed or large or black or red on white, they seem dire. They change. The numbers tick up and down noiselessly. The numbers mean so much. They are important. They predict the future. They're also just numbers. This morning I was looking at the numbers, selecting and unselecting some of them, copy and paste, graph and compare, and then I looked away from the numbers at my piece of toast on the plate and the way the sunlight fell across that toast with the distant sound of laughter through the apartment wall. And instead of attending to the numbers on the screen, I simply counted in my head from 1 to 10. I felt hopeful suddenly, as if I had received an inoculation. Okay, and now I'm also going to read from the real reason I'm here talking to you today, which is my new book, my second book, a novel called 𝘏𝗏𝗪𝗓𝗏. This is a book about luck and heists and thieves and groceries and comedy, and it is many, many, many miles away from the semi-dystopian world we are living in now. And so I'm just going to read a little excerpt of when the main character, whose name is Theo, he owns a grocery store with his family, and he is taking his 12-year-old niece in honor of her 13th birthday to the racetrack to bet on a horse. He's told her she can make one bet with her own money. "Bienvenue, welcome," shouted a kid in a red polar fleece vest. "Thank you," said Hannah. The young people eyed each other. "You 18?" he said. "She's 18, said Theo. Hannah stared at her uncle, slightly shocked. The vested greeter cleared his throat. This race course is a certified gaming house, and thereby restricted. I said she's 18. Are you even 18? Theo grabbed Hannah's arm and nudged her through the doorway. "Wow," said Hannah, to Theo's considerable satisfaction. They could already see the horses, mid-gallop, shining like stallions from a storybook. Gamblers shouted at the screens all around them. Announcers babbled overhead. Then came the furor of the finish line, betting stubs flying through the air. "Not a lot of winners," Theo observed. Hannah looked around. They seemed to be having fun until the end. "People hate losing." "People have to lose," Hannah said. "If they don't, it doesn't work. Besides, if you like to gamble, why should the fun go away just because you didn't get a certain outcome?" Theo peered at his peculiar niece. Her t-shirt, with the image of a sun wearing sunglasses, was uneven on her shoulders. "Are you ready to make a bet?" he asked. He picked up an abandoned racing form. Hannah, he thought, needed to lose. Not to choose a decent horse, a plausible winner, and then see that pony placed toward the front. Hannah needed to learn the harsher lesson. You can't count on anything, and betting's an expensive way to try. But Hannah had picked her horse before arriving, perusing the races online. Pinkwater, she said. She wanted to put everything on a horse nobody had ever heard of, not just to place, but to win. Theo looked at the page and saw that Pinkwater was up against a group of fast horses with good records. His stomach turned. He considered reversing course, persuading Hannah to bet on the favorite, who paid 2-1, but he steeled himself. His lanky niece glowed with juvenile conviction. She would benefit from a correction. Hannah's adolescent sense of invincibility for a bit of her childhood savings. They went up together to the counter. "I'd like to lay a wager," he said. "A horse called Pinkwater to win race 9. The clerk asked how much he was wagering, and Hannah reached into the pocket of her jeans. She smoothed the set of bills on the counter, added a handful of change. The notes were mostly $1,000 bills. "What in God's name is that?" whispered Theo. Hannah said it was her inheritance, her savings straight from the bank. The clerk counted the money, $13,513.53. "No," Theo said. No. Hannah wasn't allowed to do this, he said. Hannah said but, and Theo said she couldn't, and Hannah said that Theo had promised there wasn't any limit to the amount she could bet. He took out his cell phone. He called her mother, told her what was happening, told her $13,000. Mireille said, "It's her money." Theo put down the phone. He made the bet for Hannah. He immediately wanted to take it back. He said. "It's done," said the clerk. Theo's hands felt numb. He took the betting stub and gave it to Hannah, and they walked away from the counter. "This is a lesson," he said feebly. They watched on the TV screen as the jockeys led out their horses. Pinkwater was the biggest horse Theo had ever seen. He was tall and beautiful, like a stallion from a painting, white as goat's cheese, with a silver mane and silver tail, his eyes like red coals. When the race started, the other horses all hung back as they were afraid of him. Pinkwater streaked across the dirt. He crossed the finish line 2 full lengths ahead. The odds against him were 296-1, so Hannah won $4,004.88. The numbness had spread all over Theo's body. They left the race course and got in the car, and it started as usual, a key in a little slot. So that's a little bit of a lucky break inside the wagers. At Imagination, they've asked me to answer a few of your questions about my work, so let's see. Your debut novel, Us Conductors, brought you a lot of critical acclaim. Did this new fame help or hinder you when writing the wagers? I think you have to say it obviously helped. The hardest part about being a writer, or one of the hardest parts, in my opinion, at least right, being a novelist or a book writer, is how long writing takes. There aren't very many jobs where you really have such a clear sense that every day when you go to your studio or just sit down at your computer, or I work often at a cafe, you sit down and work and you think to yourself at the end of a good day, all right, I've finished like 0.03% of a novel, 0.05% of a book. It advances so slowly. The amount of work that you're doing, that you're accomplishing every day, is so tiny, and there's this constant sense of like, why am I even doing this? Will any of these words make the book that I finally finish? Will they be useful? Will anyone ever read them if they are published? Will I ever make a cent on all of these hours I'm investing? And with Us Conductors winning the Giller and meeting, finding a lot of readers, hopefully like you, that question, some of those questions at least, were taken off the table. I had the sense that if I finished this book, The Wagers, it would be published, there would be people who read it, it would make a few cents, and at least that kind of existential dread was gone. And so it was very hard writing a second book. The pressure, that sense of the sophomore slump kind of questions, that stuff is really hard, and it was a lot to reckon with. And I'm glad it's now behind me, now that I can start working on a third book. with a different set of challenges. But those hard parts, I think, for me were vastly overwhelmed by the gift of having confidence that I was working on something that had a point to it. One of the main themes of the wagers is luck and the lack of it. Do you consider yourself to be a lucky person? I am a lucky person in that I have all of the privileges I have, that I have a nice home, and that I have a wonderful family and friends and my health and these kinds of things. But I also believe that luck is a trap that I think rightly we spend a lot of our lives trying to understand and convince ourselves that bad things just happen, that it's not our fault when bad things happen, that we haven't done something wrong, that we're not sinners who get what we're due, to kind of reckon with the fact that in this world, random bad things happen all the time, and we have to pick ourselves up and deal with them, or work in solidarity with others to help them deal with those random acts of misfortune. And yet when good things happen, we kind of like to, our brains go towards imagining that there's some magical force that's responsible for that, whether that's just being lucky or whether that's something karmic where you did something that deserved a benefit. But I think both of those things are kind of traps for our head, and the wagers in some ways is a meditation on the way that thinking about luck can be a trap, because random good things happen and random bad things happen. And if you start assuming that there's this sense of deserving, of just desserts, then I think you can really get pretty messed up when you don't get what you expect or hope or feel that you deserve. Whether that's you get something much worse, or honestly, if you get something better. Finally, question about my writing process. What is your writing process? Do you build the world first, followed by the characters? Does the story come first and then the rest? People like to describe there are two camps of novelists, people who do it by the seat of their pants, and then people who plan. So people who kind of write every subsequent chapter and kind of see where the story and the characters go, and other people who plan the story and then fill it in. With both of my first two books, Us Conductors and The Wagers, I was a planner. I had a detailed plan for the books that changed as I wrote them, but really I wrote a document that in each case that described the action, and then I had to the task was to write the scenes that the action described, so a really detailed outline. And that was great in that it really, for me, is a way of combating writer's block, that sense of, well, what happens next? What do I do next? I don't have any ideas. I can't write. Paralysis that I sometimes suffer from. I always knew what scene happened next. Okay, now next scene they get in the elevator. Next scene they go on a motorcycle race, whatever, motorcycle chase. And so that for me worked really well. But there's a sense of, you do have to in your first draft, you're really kind of forcing things to follow a path you've written rather than just following your intuition entirely. And so I'm now working on a third book, and actually for the time being, as an experiment, I'm trying to work without a plan, and I'm finding it really hard for a different set of reasons, like the way what I'm talking about, that paralysis or uncertainty. But there's also something really nice about being able to truly just follow where the story takes you, rather than working from a scaffolding that you feel strongly about. I try to write a little bit every day, at least 5 times a week, at least 300 words when I'm doing my first draft. And there's the doorbell. And slowly but surely try to finish. Well, that was the doorbell. But the mailman's walking away anyway. But I think that's the end of my answering that question. Thank you for watching. Really bon courage wherever you are. And please keep reading and supporting your local bookshops and festivals like Imagination. I hope they're here, that they can weather this, and that I'll see you again next year or sometime thereafter. Have a great day.